समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया?
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Ahead of 15th August, India has warned Pakistan of painful consequences if there is any misadventure by Pakistan. In a sharp statement just moments ago, the Foreign Ministry responded to what it's calling Pakistan's reckless warmongering, something that the government is saying is now a continued pattern. This response comes amid rising tensions between India and the United States over trade war, though nobody believes that this is only about trade, and also against the backdrop of Donald Trump's newfound love for Pakistan. I'm Barkha, you're with the Mojo Story. On the program today, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are slated to meet. But before that, ahead of 15th August, India is calling out Pakistan's reckless warmongering and warning of painful consequences, also urging Pakistan to temper its rhetoric. This as Pakistan seems to be cozying up to the Trump administration and vice versa. There have been inflammatory comments from Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, but really it is Asim Munir in the United States for his second visit in as many months who clearly calls the shots in Pakistan. India's army chief is warning of India being ready or war preparedness for a conflict that may come soon. All of these developments are taking place amid a deteriorating relationship between India and the United States. Today, we'll be asking a top veteran diplomat whether the United States-India relationship can still be saved, or is it broken beyond repair thanks to Donald Trump bringing a hammer down on all accepted global norms of both diplomacy and trade. Also, what explains the newfound love that Trump has for Pakistan? And is an improvement in India-US relations now dependent on what happens in that big meeting between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump? Let me introduce our newsmaker on the program today. Former Ambassador of India to the United States of America, Navdeep Sarna, is with us. Good to see you, Ambassador Sarna. Thank you for your time. You know, you have, among the many avatars that you have held as a diplomat, been an ambassador of India to the United States of America. In your living memory as a diplomat, do you remember things being quite as strained as they are today?
Thank you, Barkha. Always a pleasure to be on your show. To answer your question, I think a living memory, if you go back to my school days, then we certainly had a very bad patch in the Nixon-Kissinger years. And I think after that, the one bad patch that we had was immediately after our nuclear tests. And if there's a lesson to be learned from those two episodes, it's that bad patches don't last. There is a way out and there is a way back to some sort of normalcy and, in fact, to distinct improvement, certainly after the nuclear tests. So, yes, it's tough days nowadays, but we've been there before.
Is there something, though, that feels a little bit different about this bad patch? One, to begin with, if the bad patch is directly linked to Donald Trump, then he still has another 3 years in office. And it's unclear what could change to make this bad patch go away. And so I guess my question is, all right, the Nixon-Kissinger years, then Pokhran. Now you actually have had a deterioration from what was a very good relationship. Even at the level of individuals, Donald Trump and Prime Minister Modi were seen to share a personal rapport. Something seems to have soured between the two leaders, not only at the level of differences over trade between the two countries.
Well, there is a lot of many things are different between those episodes and now, Barkha. And the first thing is the personality of Donald Trump. I think that is very different. You're dealing now with a man who is completely unpredictable, who's not a policy person. I mean, you could understand what Nixon was trying to do. He was trying to open a channel to China, and therefore he did not want India and its refugees from East Pakistan to come in the way and all that. You could understand what Bill Clinton was angry about, because under their very noses, India had conducted its nuclear tests. So, they felt that they had been badly treated. But you don't understand what Donald Trump is all about. And it's not just India. We must remember, although we are the ones who are feeling the pinch and we are taking it as India-US, but he's had an unpredictable, completely unbalanced sort of approach with Canada, with Mexico, with Europe, with Japan, with Korea. So it's not just India. Of course, what is different about the situation with India is that, as you rightly said, we've been on an improvement, and this steady improvement has been there for the last 25 years, ever since 98, 99, or the Clinton visit, which you and I both remember. And this steady improvement has been there system-wide. It's been bipartisan. Actually bipartisan on both sides. So, this has been a strategic kind of partnership which has had a fundamental logic. What Donald Trump is today doing is upending that logic. And whether you catch it from the trade end or you catch it from the Operation Sindoor end, it's all mixed up, and there is no logic. You did mention the personality. I think in Donald Trump's case, the personal relationships are perhaps more important than usual. But we don't know what has soured. Is it the fact that India or India's Prime Minister did not jump up and write a letter commending him for the Nobel Prize? Is it that we openly said that he had nothing to do with the cessation of hostilities after Operation Sindoor? Is it that we just didn't sort of lie down on the trade deal and agree to everything that they said? In my view, it's probably a mix of all these things.
So let me ask you this. There is a division of opinion among diplomats I've spoken to on whether India should have given him some credit or acknowledgement of the phone calls made by the Americans to Pakistan during Operation Sindoor and to India. The Prime Minister, in his statement in Parliament, was very, very clear that he was so caught up with the military operations that when the US Vice President J.D. Vance called, it took 3 or 4 phone calls before Prime Minister Modi was able to return the call. And that India's consistent position has been that Pakistan has to make the call. And Pakistan has not denied making that call. The divergence of opinion is this. Clearly, nobody is ever going to say America mediated, because Trump doesn't seem to understand the difference between front channeling and back channeling, messaging in response to, Pakistan's clear nuclear threat and claiming that to be mediation. But do you believe that India should have said, oh, thank you, Mr. Trump? Or do you believe that ship sailed the moment Trump tried to preempt India's announcement of the cessation in hostilities?
Well, Barkha, it's always wise. It's always possible to be wise in hindsight, which is always 2020, as they say. So, we can today sit and we don't know what the compulsions of our policymakers were. But I will say this, that if we ideally, we should not have been surprised with that announcement from Washington, D.C. And if they had actually played a role or were in a constructive mode, the Americans should have allowed India to do what it had to do rather than make its own announcement. Secondly, and this I said on record very quickly after that, I think we could have, again, by hindsight, we could have finished this by saying that thank you very much for everything that everybody has done, including President Trump. Yes, this is a bilateral matter which we always prefer to solve bilaterally. So it's not that either or. People have played a role before. Clinton played a role after Kargil. Others have made phone calls earlier. To my mind, this really does not amount to mediation. And if we had been able to package it immediately as, look, this is not mediation. Mediation is something when you're sitting in a third country, two delegations go, and a third country, say Qatar is holding, conversations between Iranians and Americans, or Taliban and American, that is mediation. So making a few phone calls, I mean, Trump may think it's mediation. A counterspin could have been put that this is very nice, it's very useful, but this is, of course, not mediation. We have our own channels, and India has a traditional position on mediation. Unfortunately, perhaps the ship had not sailed, but was blowing its horn when that Trump announcement came. Maybe we could have called it back even that day, but perhaps, but then, of course, these things get caught, and this is again a difference. These things get caught in domestic politics.
Yes. And a little more on that later in the conversation. I would go so far as to say that each time the Americans get involved, or, Western nations get involved, it's often because of the bogey of potential nuclear conflict. Right? One of the reasons the West gets involved is in response to Pakistan claiming, threatening, that there is a possibility of a nuclear war, that if it came to protecting their interests, they would not hesitate to use a nuclear weapon if they had to. We have seen reports now from Asim Munir's second trip to the United States that, at a closed door function, he reportedly once again boasted about taking half the world down with Pakistan if it came, if push came to shove. I guess my question is this. I mean, what is the appropriate way to handle the West's over-eagerness? It's almost like a trope. It's almost like a cliche. India and Pakistan have a military conflict. Sooner or later, Pakistan threatens or suggests that a nuclear conflict may be possible. The West gets involved. This time, the only difference is the West has made those phone calls and has wanted India to say thank you for making those phone calls.
No, you're absolutely right that in terms of, Pakistan uses the nuclear card as to overcome the asymmetry.
Correct.
And they know this is a way of internationalizing the conflict. And if it's about Kashmir, then this is a way of internationalizing the Kashmir issue. So we know that story. But then we have to constantly, be reminding the world, and this is it's a sort of constant treadmill. You don't have to suddenly go out and start reminding the world about India's, responsible nuclear status, and the fact that it was the United States, which moved a lot of pieces for India to get that India-specific waiver in the NSG and the IAEA. So I think we have to underline our position on nuclear weapons, our position on nuclear issues, and this has to be something which has to be done even when there is no conflict. It has to be something so that countries don't fall for this. Obviously, the Pakistanis will constantly use this. And then, when people don't have time, people don't have the mind space to handle another India-Pakistan nuanced, who did what, where did the terror come from, and all that. It's easy to put India-Pakistan into a box. That is a reality of South Asia. We have to deal with it.
How do you read Trump's sudden love for Pakistan? And I say this because even if it was ignorance, a lack of proper briefing the first time that, Trump spoke about India and Pakistan fighting over Kashmir for thousands of years, when he first made that inane remark, it's ignorance or being misinformed or being underbriefed or not appropriately briefed the first time, the second time. The 29th or the 30th time you make the same comment, there's something else going on. There's also Asim Munir back at CENTCOM meeting with with Pentagon officials, second time in 2 months. Initially, it looked like this was about Israel, Iran, the American interest in Pakistan's geography. Now it's not clear. Trump is talking about oil in Pakistan. There is a firm linked to Trump's family that is seen to have a tie-up with Pakistan's crypto council. There is talk about rare earth minerals agreement with Pakistan. What is actually going on here? This takes you back to some Robin Raphael type years.
Yes, except that this is again not some misguided, great strategic policy. Yes, there is an element that possibly, Pakistanis have sold them the idea that we can help you with Iran, we can help you with China. That's one aspect. But I think you go down to the basic sort of, the drivers of President Trump's enthusiasm. They're usually personal. They're usually personal about him, his wealth, his standing, his ego, his family, and the interests of people who are able to talk to him. So I think the fact that his family is involved, whether it's crypto or whether it's this mirage of hydrocarbons and rare earths, whether it is the charm of a general. Trump has an old admiration for generals. Like even Musharraf, I know when he first came, the American New York Times and others had put out these things. He's a whiskey drinking, dog loving general. So now you have another general, and Trump had a weakness. He had 3 or 4 generals in his first term. So I think it's a combination of these possibilities of greed. It's also, I think, a factor that if he keeps this India-Pakistan thing going, he can continue to say that he's the guy who can resolve it. So I think the Pakistanis are getting that signal, and that is why they're continuing with these comments. That if they raise the temperature, Trump will again continue to say, no, I told them this is okay, I told them this is okay, and which will again build up his Nobel Prize credentials. So I don't think it is, I'll just finish, Barkha. I don't think this is a permanent dehyphenation. Yes, perhaps during Trump's time, and perhaps until Trump gets weaker, which he inevitably somewhere along the way will, I think it is there. But I think it is not a major policy reset. And that will depend on how effectively we continue to keep the other pieces in play.
Yeah, you said it's not a permanent dehyphenation, but I think you mean it's not a permanent hyphenation.
I say yes. Sorry, I mean this is not this is not a permanent hyphenation. I think the dehyphenation has happened not because only we wanted it to happen. The dehyphenation has happened because the relationship has a solidity across the board, which the US-Pakistan relationship simply doesn't have.
So let me just push back a little bit on this in terms of the immediate, let's say next year. Let's imagine for a moment that Trump is able to come back after a successful meeting with Vladimir Putin and therefore loses the context to penalize India for purchase of Russian oil. Do you really believe, after what's gone down between India and the US, and I think personally for the Prime Minister who invested some of his own energy in this relationship with Trump, that you can sort of rebuild the pieces of that? Or do you think that diplomacy and statecraft is in fact the art of the possible?
Well, I think the one aspect which might improve for us if the Trump-Putin meeting goes well is that he will not want to impose that extra 25% on us, which is essentially was to hit back at Russia and put pressure on Russia, besides putting pressure on India. So he can't be penalized, putting secondary sanctions on Russia and saying, yes, I had a great meeting with Russia. So I think we still have a window, which is why he put that 21-day window on the extra penalty of 25 tariffs. So let's wait and see that. I think for the rest, of course, we will not say that, no, once you have said all this, we will never talk to you. Our relationship is broken, it's in smithereens, etc. I mean, the art of diplomacy is to continue going, continue to salvage what we can, continue to get a policy reset, say on the Quad, finally get some sort of a trade deal, pick up the pieces on technology, pick up the pieces on defense, and work around it. We can't, but this time I think we will do with the benefit of having had many of the presumptions that were made been shown to be false. You know, the presumption that India can handle Trump because India handled him so well in Trump first term. The presumption that, Trump just hates Pakistan. He thinks it's a country of liars and deceitful people, which is words to that effect that he did. Or that, we can get around Trump by buying this, doing that, or putting him, sort of feeding his ego through big events and all that. So I think we will now go in being more real.
But here's something that I'm confused by. Obviously, in this scenario, India is building on a cautious rapprochement with China. The Prime Minister is going to be attending the SCO summit in China at the end of the month. The Chinese Foreign Minister is scheduled to arrive in Delhi in the coming week. But China, according to our army, the Deputy Army Chief, provided live inputs to Pakistan, and not just weapons systems. And those live inputs were provided in Operation Sindoor. China as an adversary is probably more directly dangerous to India than the United States of America, notwithstanding these strains. My question is, if Trump cuts a deal with China and Pakistan cozies up to Trump, India is going to have to recalibrate or reimagine some of those moves on the chessboard. So how do you see, first let's start with this India-China cautious rapprochement that's taking place. Are you comfortable with it?
No, I think, again, this will not be a rapprochement that will be done forgetting that China is a major adversary. So I think it is probably there to relieve some amount of pressure and to see how far we can, get back to a certain kind of dialogue or an engagement with China, which doesn't mean that we've forgotten that they are adversaries or that they have done what they have done in Galwan and etc., or they have ambitions which are anti to India's interests. I think we have dealt with China for long and kept that both those things in mind. So I'm sure we won't be suddenly giving up all our talking points against China simply because we are talking to them about possible border trade or having a meeting and all that. So I don't think that if China and US cut a deal, and this has always been on the cards, this has been on the cards from day one of Trump too, that you don't know when he'll cut a deal with China, that all he wants is this, G2 kind of situation, and possibly Russia also, a G3 kind of situation, zones of influence and all that. It's quite possible that he will cut a deal. And that is why you cannot make the India-US relationship simply an anti-China partnership. And, that convergence is convenient. That convergence is useful. And that convergence has been there ever since the US realized that China's rise was inevitable and they needed. And that is why they were cutting a deal for India under this rubric of what has been called by scholars strategic altruism. That, we will overlook some trade issues, we will overlook some other minor problems because we need India as a democratic strategic partner against China ever since Condi Rice. They've been looking at it like that. But today, Trump has cut out that strategic altruism. He's actually treating us like anybody and everybody without having a policy landscape in his mind about the Indo-Pacific, about the democratic partner. So we will have to take that in our stride. We should always be prepared for a US-China deal.
But if Trump is seeking and is able to get for himself some version of this G3 that you talk about, he has a successful meeting with Putin, he comes back home, happy with something he scored there, and then he cuts a deal with China. A lot of Indians, you hear a lot of this since Operation Sindoor, India's on its own. Is that how you see it? India's on its own?
Well, what is wrong? India is 1.4 billion people. We have been on our own since 1947. It's good to remember on the eve of Independence Day. India is the strongest when you think we are on our own. And actually, we are not on our own. We just have to continue to build real relationships which are not for an immediate transaction, which don't simply serve our immediate real politic gains. We have to understand that relationships are built over a long time. The relationships are built on basic interests, a basic value-based foreign policy. So India is never going to be alone in that sense. If to think that US, if Uncle US leaves us, India is a little child lost in the Mela. I don't think that is the right attitude. India is not going to be alone. We just have a lot of friends. We have to make sure that we keep them. We have to work hard, for instance, even in our neighborhood. We have to work hard with the global South. We have to take positions on issues which simply don't concern us, but which concern a lot of other countries.
So let me end by asking you, what would concern you in the months to come? There's this sense that on our east, and that's why Munir actually reportedly repeated what his Director General ISPR told The Economist on record, that this time we will strike India from the east. There is this rapprochement rebuilding taking place between Pakistan and Bangladesh. We have a strained relationship with Bangladesh. We have, of course, an adversarial relationship with Pakistan. We have a fraught relationship with China. And we have these strains with the Americans. What would you be most concerned about right now in the next few months?
I think India has to get concerned, remain concerned like we probably are about our immediate security. We have to strengthen ourselves. We have to be worried about, Pakistan's increasing military rhetoric without panicking, without reaction. We have to work on Bangladesh. We have to work on the neighborhood. And if we are engaging China in some way without giving up our basic interests and our basic talking points, then I think it is all to the good. We also have to continue to work with other partners, which, for instance, in the Indo-Pacific, we don't know what Donald Trump is going to do about Quad, whether he's going to come here or not. But Japan and Australia are there, and they're still valuable partners with whom we are working in the Indo-Pacific. So we have to constantly do that, and we have, as we are expecting, we have to, put a major effort back into the Russia relationship. Of course, the Russians might, everybody knows that, okay, you're having problems with the US. So is that why you're coming to us? So we have to make sure that we get back to the drawing board on our real interests and give weight to each relationship, which doesn't get tossed away simply by one man's whims and fancies.
Couldn't agree with you more on that last point. Ambassador Navteet Sena, always a pleasure. I think the world's eyes will be on that Alaska summit. But India, and I completely agree with you here, 1.4 billion people on its own. What's wrong with that is something to take note of, especially ahead of 15th August. Thank you so much, and a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Voter's Story and support independent, robust journalism.